My name is Ann Taylor Lashbrook-Wright, and I just finished recording the second podcast in a series that I am doing with my friends Hondo and Jake. We are all students of Mark Passio. We are all taking again his course, How to Become the True Media. And today we talked about religion, and I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that. And specifically, I want to talk a little bit about the religion of authority. So I want to kind of suspend the belief of just thinking about religions as cultural religions, like how I grew up in Christianity, or maybe you grew up in another religion. Both Jake and Hondo shared that they grew up practicing Catholicism. And yeah, so if we could just set those aside for a little bit, let's think about what is going on in our current world. And I've shared this before. This today is March 9th, 2026, and I continue to hear everybody talking about Jeffrey Epstein and everybody talking about pedophiles. But I don't know that they are thinking about the deeper religion that these individuals practice. So perhaps you are unaware that we are about to enter the season of sacrifice. And as Mark Passio has shared so beautifully over the years, it doesn't matter whether you believe this or not, because the individuals that do practice different occulted religions, different practices, they believe in it, right? So, as Jake reminded us today as we recorded this podcast, we're about to enter the season of sacrifice. I wonder what kind of false flags or psyops they might run on us. And if you are unaware that we are under psychological operations all the time, I'm really sorry. I think you're really ignorant or ignorant. Here's a larger version so that you can see. Please make sure that you are, if you're unfamiliar with his work, that you go back and review Mark Passio's What on Earth is Happening. Start at the very beginning and work your way through. I wanted to share the image of this book that I have been quoting, and Hondo wanted to make sure that I link in our show notes and wherever you're viewing this video so that you can find the books and things that we reference. So I referenced The God Tricks Against the Matrix, Krivda, The God Tricks Against the Matrix by Anna Reintordt. And I also referenced that I found out about her work through Paul Chek. So this image on the right is just a screenshot image of Paul. And I think it's really perfect because he's in front of his board teaching. And that's how I love to think about Paul Chek. And I was exposed to Anna Reintordt, and I chose to buy this book after listening to Paul's four-part series that he did with Anna. And it starts at episode 173 of Living 40 with Paul Chek, or you can find that through his work Spirit Gym. Paul Chek is Chek, and you can find out all about him. And I have shared this before, and I really want to share it again. I really think that we need to truly listen to people, regardless of what we may believe about everything about a person. We can find truth in many, many places. And I want to read to you just a tiny bit from Krivda so that you possibly are going to want to go read her book or listen to hours and hours of Paul Chek speak with her. So here is a little bit from Krivda, The God Tricks Against the Matrix. Today, the high priest of money and science are not content with all they have taken from Shakti to feed their religious empires. Instead of showing some gratitude for her generosity, they are deploying, on a grand scale, the old psychopath's trick of blaming the victim. The energy goddess is now deemed guilty of a very big sin of carbon emissions, allegedly causing the planetary disaster of climate change, the ultimate threat to a planet Earth for which the high priest suddenly seemed to care a lot. Never mind the logical fallacy of blaming a feminine principle of energy for destroying a feminine planet whose plundering predators they are. Actually, the way priesthoods treat the feminine, and most blatantly, the way they mess with energy, contributes to revealing a point that is essential for our understanding of the gods, in lowercase letters. It is in the very character of gods and their priests never to shoulder their own responsibilities. And I'd like you to think about that specifically. I'm going to read this again because I think that people are missing the mark right now because they are thinking about political leaders and people that are listed in, these quote Epstein files, right? But they're not thinking about who is actually doing their bidding. Okay. So right here it says, it is in the very character of gods, that's lowercase gods, right? The individuals that think they are God, that they are attempting to play God, and their priest never to shoulder their own responsibilities. So I'm hoping the music's going to come through, and I'm hoping this is going to make sense because I'm going to use Michael Franti and Spearhead's song Flower in the Gun to hopefully to inspire you to be the flower and the gun. And I am going to share some images you've seen before, some that are new to you, and I'm hoping that I'm going to time it all perfectly so that we can chat about them at the end. This is an image, I believe, that was propagated throughout the Vietnam War. This is a more modern image that you might be more familiar with. Today we need a nation of Minutemen, citizens who are not only prepared to take arms, but citizens who regard the preservation of freedom as the basic purpose of their daily life and who are willing to consciously work and sacrifice for that freedom. I don't have to believe everything that JFK said to know those words to be true.
We could be the healing when you're feeling all alone. We can be the reason to find the strength to carry on. In a world that's so divided, we shall overcome. We can be the healing. We can be the flower in the gun. We can be the healing. We could be the flower in the gun. What could I say to my son or to my daughter if they came and asked me about these days? What kind of reason could I give for all the hate that's standing in the way? Wish I could tell them that nobody's gonna judge them, and every stranger on the block is gonna love them. No bully in the world could ever hurt them, but I can't say that today. No, no one could ever take your pride from you. Speak your truth and let your spirit fly, 'cause we could be the healing when you're feeling all alone. We could be the reason, to find the strength to carry on. In a world that's so divided, we shall overcome. We could be the healing. We could be the flower in the gun. We could be the healing. We could be the flower in the gun.
What could I say to every woman who was ever told by a man, don't try to reach too high? What could I say to every girl who was betrayed and told to keep the pain locked inside? Wish I could say nobody's ever gonna judge me. Every stranger on the block is gonna love me. No bully in the world is gonna hurt me, but I can't say that today. No, no, no one could ever take my pride from me. I speak my truth and let my spirit fly, 'cause
we could be the healing when you're feeling all alone. We could be the reason to find the strength to carry on. In the world so divided, we shall overcome. We could be the healing. We can be the flower in the gun. We can be the healing. We can be the flower in the gun. It's like dropping pebbles into the ocean and seeing them spread ripples around the world. Let me hear you say, whoa, whoa,
Whoa,
yeah,
yeah,
whoa, whoa,
whoa,
yeah. Everybody say, whoa, whoa,
whoa,
yeah,
yeah.
whoa, whoa, yeah. 'Cause we can be the healing when you're feeling all alone. We could be the reason to find the strength to carry on. In the world so divided, we shall overcome. We could be the healing. We could be the flower in the gun. We could be the healing. We can be the flower in the gun. We can be the healing. We can be the flower in the gun. We could be the healing. We could be the flower in the gun.
I don't I don't do this to be disrespectful. I don't take their words and their music and put my own slides and images to it because I don't disagree with what they shared. I don't disagree with their video. And if you've never seen the video to Flower in the Gun, you should. But I don't know. I don't know. And I'd love it if for some reason somebody that knows something about Michael Fronte and Spearhead and the video that they produced, I don't know if they know the psyops behind the school shootings. I don't know if they know the psyops behind Breonna Taylor. I shared because I am from Kentucky, and you saw in those slides, right? I live in Bowling Green, Kentucky. We were in Louisville, Kentucky during COVID, right? And so I put these slides in here that I have shared in the past about my experience in 2020 because we talked a lot about that today in the world of religion and the religion of scientism. But I'm hoping that this is resonating with you, right? And I'm hoping that you are going to read a little bit more. I'm going to read a little bit more to you here. Okay, just because I love this book, okay? And I think that if everybody would read this, they would get a broader picture of what's going on instead of this little myopic view that we get from videos and documentaries and podcasts. If we actually dig into the written word, right, then we know a little bit more. In post industrial Western countries, if there exists any kind of religion for Shakti energy, it is an upside down religion whose high priest, the oilmen, and the CEOs of nuclear energy and of power distribution use the deity as their servant in the temples of brutal extraction, such as oil rigs, megadams, and nuclear power plants. The human sacrifice of coal miners and nuclear cleanup heroes serves to feed priestly greed and compensate for priestly foolishness, while the energy goddess, by her very nature, needs no such food. The notion that there is no life without energy being a self evident fact of life. It is not erected as dogma, but there certainly has been a priestly energy dogma ruling over the past century. The dogma whereby economies are dependent on oil. That dogma has served the oil oligarchs, god of money very well, justifying their inquisition on promoters of cleaner energy and zero point technologies that have that have more empowerment potential for humans. Okay. So, hopefully, you're clear that so much has been hidden and obfuscated from our view, and that this right versus wrong, that which is why I chose this particular slide. Nope, not this one. That one right there, where it shows like the red and the blue, right? The right versus left paradigm. If this is resonating with you, I want you to send me an email, but I'm going to keep going through these slides and you'll see me here again at the end. So, a little bit something that you might be more familiar with is a cultural religion. And this shares a little bit of my background, and I've shared this slide before. The wisdom of all my grandmothers showed me what Christ consciousness truly is. I know it is a change in consciousness versus politics that is needed to, quote, save us. This is not a spiritual or religious war, but a war of right versus wrong. There is no time to debate religion or dogma. We must focus on our Creator's principles. Others may call these first principles natural law, natural right, or divine law. There is objective morality, and we must begin to raise our young by putting first things first. Unlike most, my family did raise me. All institutions have been corrupted. We must abandon them and rally behind the truth, not the church. Okay, and this is my grandmother. This is my father's mother, who, if you were fortunate enough to be blessed to interact with her in person, I will give you the words that my friend said when he met her. He said, "Have you seen your grandmother's eyes?" I said, "Yeah, I've been around her my whole life." And he said, "She's enlightened." I said, "I know. She played piano in that one room church across the street from her house, depending on who you ask, for 75 or 76 years. And I don't identify as a Baptist and I don't identify as a Christian anymore because I don't believe there is one way. Okay. And if you're going to dismiss me because of that, I'm sorry. But I did go to that church for their anniversary this year, and I will continue to go there for certain things, even though I know that all religious institutions have been corrupted, because I love my family, but I will continue to speak truth. Okay, and I know that there is truth hidden in so many places, which is why I read various books, whether I believe everything they're saying or not. That's why I've quoted things in here that I don't have to believe every single thing they say, because I know that truth is objective. So I want to share a couple of images of my son's work that he is working on his current composition right now. He calls my mom honey, and this he wrote for her. "I love you, honey." And then he was trying to write something funny. So Don, my father's name is Don Miller Lashbrook. He goes by Dusty. Don and Honey ran from the cops. They stopped and got in a car. Honey took Carter to get a minifig. If you don't know that, it's like a mini figurine. It's like what I would call a Lego man. Charlotte, that is my niece, said Big Deb. That is what my sister's friends in high school started calling my mom, because one of my sister's friends, her mother is a reverend, and she's Rev Deb. So my mom is Big Deb. My mom is not big at all. She's kind of tall, but not that tall. But it says, "Big Deb, there's a pig." It was a police officer. I shared this with Jake and Hondo today, because it's my understanding that the dark occultists call their order followers their dogs, right? We joke and call police officers pigs, but they call them their dogs because they do the bidding and they know that they are more morally culpable because the police officers are the ones doing the bidding. The order followers are the ones carrying out the orders. As I have shared before, I live in Kentucky, and I shared this. This was in a larger slide that you saw earlier, where it shows the, kind of the states around us. In case you're unfamiliar with geography, right? Most people are pretty ignorant in my experience. And as I shared with Jake and Hondo today, I was pretty ignorant about the layout of England. So I had to have Jake kind of explain to me where he's from specifically. And I am from Bowling Green, but during COVID, I was living in Louisville. And many people may have remembered from the COVID pandemic time period that there were riots and things going on in Louisville. And I actually, my husband and I and our son, we drove right in there to see what was going on. Instead of listening to things or watching things on our phone, we actually drove right there. And my background is probably a little different than what you're familiar with. So, I this is my son Carter. I took him out rock climbing when he was 6 days old, and I had two very young midwives to attend my birth. And I am really fortunate that my son was born into this kind of birth community, this broader community of people that are multi generational homeschoolers. And even though I may not adhere to their religious dogma, I have a deep respect for these individuals that I call Orthodox Christians. I don't know how they would identify themselves, but I call them Orthodox Christians. And I have much respect for them, even though I think that these institutions have been corrupted. So, this is what the early couple of years of my son's life looked like. And I'm going to share this quote from David Data, as I've shared before, even though, maybe you don't believe everything he said. Maybe you don't know anything about him. Maybe you have never studied the masculine and the feminine. Obviously, I read from Krivda earlier, and she references Shakti and the feminine, right? Maybe you're unfamiliar with Shiva and Shakti. I have shared about my background. Of spending 20 years of my life studying yoga. So I was also exposed to David Data through a series of courses that I took about relationships that were really looking at the masculine and the feminine. And so I want to share this with you. If you're waiting for anything in order to live and love without holding back, then you suffer. Every moment is the most important moment of your life. No future time is better than now to let down your guard and love. And I just think that's a call to all of us that we get to come together. And I want to share a few more images that I have shared in this podcast series, and you're going to be able to hear the audio here where you couldn't in the presentation with Jake and Hondo and myself. So, this is kind of the current world that I feel like we're living in. The current public education system chooses to give their sex education information that they're choosing to share. And it's my experience that most people get most of their information and entertainment through Netflix. I have never seen this series. I don't care anything about it. It's of no interest to me because Netflix is really of no interest to me. Not because I don't have many people that identify different, that believe different things, that have different relationships and love relationships. I believe that consenting adults, I know it to be true that consenting adults can behave in any way that they choose. But my concern is for the children. And this was a video that the School of Nashville Ballet chose to share with my son and his fellow party boys. Let's hear for the boy. Oh, let's give the boy a hand. And I'm happy for that to come through loud and painful in your ears because I wanted it to be kind of loud and painful. Carter says he doesn't like that song, and I don't think that it's really inviting boys to the ballet. I think it's doing the same thing that the arts have continued to do, which is welcome people that identify differently. I think the arts have done a great job of that, but I don't think they're inviting individuals like my son that are very clear that he is a boy. One of my son's favorite, I mean, he's got lots of favorite books, but one of his favorite audiobooks that he really enjoyed listening to was Little Men. And maybe you're unfamiliar with that book. Carter has consumed a lot of classic literature, but maybe you're familiar with this reference on the left, and I share this often. You'll stay with me until the very end, right? Tell me you'll stay with me until the very end because I'm really long winded. That's why I share it. Not because I'm a Harry Potter fan, not because I need to throw a lightning bolt in there, right? But because most people are familiar with Harry Potter and they maybe haven't read, definitely haven't read Little Men, but they probably haven't even read Little Women. And I'm going to give you a quote from Little Women because I love that book. It's bad enough to be a girl anyway when I like boys' games and work and manners. I can't get over my disappointment in not being a boy, and it's worse than ever now, for I'm dying to go and fight with Papa, and I can only stay at home and knit like a poky old woman. And if you have never read Little Women and you've only seen the super propaganda y films that have been produced, I'm really sorry for that. Okay. And I share these images. These are real images from my real life. That is me on, I think, like day 2 or 3 on my stairs that are right behind me right now with one of my birth partners who I love very, very much while I'm like in the middle of a contraction, all of the things, doing my best to have Carter born here at home. And I've shared about his birth story, and so I'm not going to share about that. This image of Carter with this other little baby is his friend Amata. And they have been together since they were a few months old. I knew Amata's parents before we were both pregnant, but we had a mutual friend who just thought that we needed to be together, and she was perfect. And they have been together and for their entire lives. And the image in the of the older gentleman, that is my grandfather, that is Gumbuddy, and we were really fortunate to have him in our lives. And he fortunately died before COVID because he was in assisted living, because he needed that support. But he would uh, not remember who I was and tell me about his wife, my grandmother, and many things in his dementia at the end of his life, but he always remembered Carter. And so I love this image of Carter looking at his gum buddy, his great grandfather. And that's Carter on my back. Like I shared, Carter spent many of his years while we rock climbed and he rode in a kid carrying backpack. And then the tiny image, because maybe you're viewing this on a phone, maybe you're viewing it on a big screen like me, I don't know, but of Carter clapping is Carter seeing his first ballet. So I share these things with you because I'm not ignorant, right? I have people in my life that are lesbians, non binary, all of these things. And I can still love and accept them because I don't have any issue with what consenting adults do. I have a real issue when we get children involved. So please keep calm in this crazy time that we live and please read the classics. Don't look at the kind of overt feminist propaganda that is put into Little Women. We saw a play production of Little Women, and Carter was really bummed about all of the things that were left out of that play. So let's not view Jo March as a trans person, as somebody who was anything other than the quintessential tomboy. She did, in the story, marry a man. He was a very older man, which is a whole other conversation. Maybe not as old in the book as it was in the movies, right? They have to put their little pedo spin on it all. Um, But she didn't choose to become a boy. She didn't choose to do that. She actually dedicated her life, supposedly in the novel, to supporting young orphans, which is a whole other conversation. You saw that, right, in the earlier part of this presentation where I referenced the newsboys and orphans. But we'll only get to dig this deeply if we take the time to have classical education, if we take the time to understand grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and if we take the time to dig deeper into what is true classical liberal arts, right? Arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. So, yeah, in slightly different order than they're listed here. But again, thanks to Mark Passio, who reminds us that being awake means caring enough to take real world action and create real world change, which is what I'm here to do. And I shared today when I talked to Jake and Hondo that actually in Your Health, which is a publication by Joseph Pilates, he references natural law multiple times in Your Health, which I think is really interesting. And I'm just pulling up my copy right here so I make sure and get everything correct. That was originally published in 1934. I took these slides from one of Will Keller's presentations that I found online. But if you're unfamiliar, I referenced earlier in the slide with the picture of my grandmother, I referenced natural law, creator's law, first principles, whatever you want to call them. These are those principles: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender, which is what a lot of these slides were from, was my presentation on gender for Carter's Country Club, and the generative principle of care. And again, thanks to Will Keller for the work that he is putting out in the world. I'm doing my best to share my truth. And so if you have come across his work, then fantastic. If you haven't, then you should. But I like to give credit where credit's due, and that's where I took this slide from. But I have a few more slides to share with you, as I have shared before. I shared this picture. This is from the square downtown where I live, and perhaps your square where you live looks similar, because there is a reason why these things look similar. And there is a reason why we want to know our history. I don't know a lot about Tesla's technology. And I know that there are many people out there that are digging into these questions about the old world. But what I do know is that here in Bowling Green, this old family of the Lampkins, there's Lampkin Park here, which my mom never allowed me to go to growing up because it wasn't in a quote good area of town. But the Lambkin name has been put onto this large horseshoe. I don't believe that that happened at the same time that this horseshoe was erected, but I don't know because, again, a lot of our history is hidden. And so I love to dig into the old world history as well. But I want to make sure that we are not spending our time getting distracted by these things because the children need us. Okay. My flat earth friends, I love you. I respect you. But I think we need to save this debate until you're on the other side of the ice wall. Okay. Let's stop debating because the children need us. Okay. The children that are going through satanic ritual abuse, the children that are being vaccinated and maimed, they need us. Okay. And I took this from a documentary, a Stu Peters documentary that maybe you're familiar with, maybe you're not. But I asked the question, have you gone down the old world rabbit hole? Right? Maybe you have. Maybe you've watched those 8-hour presentations from our flat earth friends. I've watched them because I'm willing to listen. And there is truth in what they're saying, right? Do you know about orphan trains? Or again, did you just watch a movie, right? And are we digging more deeply? Okay, these are the old images that we are shown of newsboys. And again, I reference the 1899 newsboy strike, which was made into a movie and then a musical. But I want to give a very creepy quote from Bram Stoker. And maybe you know about him and maybe you don't. You should. It says, "Listen to them, the children of the night, what music they make." I wonder what he's referencing there. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. But I'm going to play another song for you that maybe you should know.
Stare down the odds and seize the day. Minute by minute, that's how you win it. We will find a way, but let us seize the day.
We're going to listen a little bit longer. I know maybe you don't like musical theater. I'm sorry.
Cannot erase our fear. Courage is when
Here's the truth.
we face our fear. Tell those with power, safe in their tower, we will not obey.
Okay, right? So I shared this slide, and we're almost at the end of this presentation. I share this slide because I want us to really listen, okay? And there's so many songs that I would want to play for you, and I would hope that you would hear the wisdom just like I do. But maybe it's like this blatant slide that is bright white and glaring in your eyes, right? And maybe you can't hear it because you're like, oh, I don't speak Chinese. I can't read that. Maybe you're not saying that, and that's wonderful, but a lot of people are, right? All that I wanted you to do was to listen, to be here, to hear, to be present, to think, to see, to focus, and feel. I am sharing from my heart, okay? I was born in 1982. That's my dad. That's a classic radio flyer wagon that was my uncle's, that my grandfather had somebody paint my name on it. And as I've shared before, my name is Ann Taylor Lashbrook-Wright. My first name is Ann because my aunt's middle name is Ann, and my middle name is Taylor because my great grandfather's name was Miller Taylor. And my father's name is Don Miller Lashbrook. He was lost when he was little, not really lost, but just lost for a moment. And they asked him what his name was, and he said, "I am Dusty Rogers. I am Roy Rogers' little boy." Because my dad loved Roy Rogers and wanted to be his son, even though he loves his dad as well. But my dad's name is not Donald. His name was just Don, is just Don, or my grandfather's name was Don. So my dad's name is Don, but he goes by Dusty. So I share this to try to create a relationship with you, to try for you to see past these slides and these images. I share this mandala because that is part of my heritage as well, and I want us to have this visceral sacral chakra reaction such that we take action. I share with you the scales. My son has a beautiful set of scales upstairs in his room because like my father, I was born under the sun sign of Libra. And like my son, we were both born under a new moon in Libra. And as I have shared before, just like Bruce Lee, and unfortunately, or fortunately, however you view it in this time, like Adolf Hitler, I am a stellium, right? And I am a stellium, but I like to claim it because it makes sense to me. Just like I never had issue with the fact that we have a creator, just that I knew there was one truth. I never had issue with being called a Libra because it made all the sense in the world. Because when you're a stellium, you have six planets in the same side. And if you look at my astrological chart, my birth chart, you'll see that it's all focused in one area. And I really hope to seek balance. That's why I'm here. And that's why I don't want things to be divided anymore. I want to be the flower and the gun. Okay? Because just like it shares in Newsies the musical. Courage cannot erase our fears. Courage is when we face our fears. Tell those with power, safe in their tower, we will not obey. We hold the brave battalion and stand side by side, too few in numbers, right? And then I forget the last words, right? Of course, I'm going to just lose it, right? Thanks for, thanks for the gate program and a little bit of mind control. But please reach out. This was longer today than some of my other videos, but believe me, I'm really long winded. If you all have watched any of the episodes of Carter's Country Club, they're really long. And yeah, so let's come together and let's do what David Icke tells us and to say no. We do not have to acquiesce to authority. We can say no, regardless of what happens, right? Like I said, like Jake reminded us today, we are entering the occult season of sacrifice. So are we just going to be blinded by whatever they tell us, or are we going to be prepared, right? Are we going to just put the little flower in the gun, or are we going to have our own guns ourselves? Thanks for listening. I'll see you soon.